Today's topic will be understanding and using the optimization module. And before we go to the optimization, to the optimized module, I'll just shortly introduce some of the concepts of Readsoft and then show you some tips and tricks to use so we can be faster in verify and use less time in there as well. But before I begin, I was just shortly mention that it's important that you just a second, someone else is joining. It's important that you remember to patch Readsoft, even though some of you already is using the latest major version. We still have some patches for that as well, because smaller glitches tend to find its way to the releases. So and we noticed in fix 1 for version 6.2 that there were some critical issues where interpret doesn't work correctly. So pay attention to the version you have and make sure you have the latest available patch installed. So before we dig into the optimized module, just very briefly introduce the different modules that we have. You probably all know the different colored arrows you see, and if we put them into the different routines, we had the administration at the top where the manager is. We use that for setting up your system and configure all the inputs and outputs there. And in the old days, we had optimize as well, the administration routine line. But I hope to convince you to move it down to a daily work task instead. And on the daily work, you probably all use verify most, and some of you also use the scan module. It is being more and more phased out because you receive invoices through an email instead. But it's still a place where you can feed the system with new documents. Then we have the automated processes. That's where we find the interpret and transfer module. And we use the interpret module to identify who sent you invoices and extract all the information on the invoice. We also validate them, and based on the validation outcome, we either set the status as there's an error that needs to be fixed or corrected, or we will send it directly into your ERP system using transfer. Transfer module is also an automated process. You will never see interpret and transfer at all, but transfer is collecting all the information that you have approved and send it to your ERP system, and then all these invoices are no longer available in Readsoft. The key concepts that I would like to tell you some more about today is invoice profiles and invoice definitions, and how these two work together. And if we talk about the invoice profile, basically what it is a place where you can define which field you would like to capture on an invoice and eventually send it into your ERP system. But it's also a place where you can define how you get invoices into Readsoft and how you would like to export them to your ERP system. That is the main tasks that is in an invoice profile. But there's more to it than that. It's also a country-specific profile. That means when you create a new profile, can't you see? I'm sorry, I think we missed a few slices. Didn't I show anything at all? Okay. Please let me know if you can't see my screen.
Yes.
You can. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Good. So the invoice profile is also a country specific profile, and before you create them, you have to ask yourself if the main majority of the invoices is in English or Danish or what language they are, because it means something. And also, which legal entity do you approve invoices for? It can also be beneficial to select a British profile if you approve invoices for a British company. But besides that, we have some business logic attached to the different profiles. And amongst these business logic, we have which VAT rates are allowed to pass through. We have exclude titles, where we define which titles don't is not something we would like to use when we, for instance, find an invoice date or something like that. And secondly, the system works very well out of the box in one language, and that is because of the different search titles. But as you can see in the next screenshot, I've shown you here two different, the same invoice in Danish using a newly created Danish profile and a newly created English profile. And when we send it through the Danish profile, it's a Danish invoice, almost everything is being captured correctly. There's only one doubt where it has three different options to select from. But when we send the same invoice through the English newly created profile, it nearly can't find anything. And that is because the system uses the search title a lot. So whenever we create, for instance, a Danish profile and look at the invoice number, we only get these few Danish search word that we look for on an invoice. And whenever we find one of these words, we guess that where to find the value we would like to capture. So, and when we talk about search word and stuff like that, we are also talking about first time recognitions on invoices. And as the system doesn't know anything about a supplier's invoice the first time they receive it, it can only use the search word to find the information. So it would be a good idea to also add additional languages to the different search word. And in order to do that, I can just show you in the manager module. What you do is simply you open a profile just by right click, say open. Then you can expand, go down to the different field and double click on, in this case, invoice number, and go to titles. Once the profile is open, you're also allowed to put in new words. You can put in invoice NO, for instance, stuff, words like that. If you have a file with a lot of different titles, it could be in German, Spanish, French, Italian, whatever, you can just point out where the title file is that you have, and it is, do I have an example? It's basically just a text file where you have one word on each line for this kind of field, this type of field. And once you add the file, you will see all the different titles in this box here, and you can press add all, and they will be moved to all the search titles. Good. Then I talked about the exclude titles. As you can see, for each language profile that you have in your system, you also have what we call an EI Global Extra ini file. that is a more or less hidden configuration file that we have. But here we can, for each field that we have, go in and put in some exclude titles. For instance, if we are searching for the invoice number, we don't want to capture customer number, order number, item number, stuff like that on the invoice. And it could also be a very good idea to add words in different languages, just so we know that the system won't capture incorrect information the first time you see invoices from a supplier. Some other logic that we have is we can define how old an invoice can be before we give a warning. We can also define if we want to do validation on dates and amount as well. We have the VAT value, that the VAT rate values that we allow, that it can allow in the system. And there are a lot of other information here that we can go in and specify for each profile. But it's worth it can be beneficial to look into this file and then see what can we do to optimize it. And then something else, when we create a new profile, in this case, again, it's a Danish profile where we look at the order, the invoice number. The specification for the invoice number is N2 to 15. That means that the invoice number can only be a number, and it can be between 2 and 15 characters in length. That has to fit on all incoming invoices, which will often give you some validation errors because they send in letters and dashes and stuff like that as well. So in order for the system to accept invoice numbers, we suggest that you change it to an X instead. X means that it can accept special characters, alpha characters, both uppercase and lowercase, and special characters in general. So it would be a good idea to go in and change that as well. Then I mentioned the amount validation. You can enable it or you can disable it. If you choose to enable it, it's important that you have at least 3 different amount fields: gross amount, net amount, and VAT amount. And the system uses these to calculate if, first of all, it finds the correct amount and put it into the right boxes. So it knows that the gross amount should be higher than the VAT amount or the net amount. But it can also calculate a missing field. If it has 2 of them, it can calculate the third as well. So, but again, some likes it, some hates it, because it's not always the right place. If they put in a freight or something like that, it can be it can give some problems. But it's there for a reason, and for some it works very well. That is all that I would like to show you about the profiles. And if we move on to the definitions, invoice definitions is a very important part of the invoice solution, mainly because this is it uses the invoice definition as a template to where it learns how to interpret individual invoices for certain suppliers, and all definitions are being created the first time you verify an invoice from the supplier, and it copies all information from the profile to the definition, and it also add all the info about where it should find the field on the invoice. So the first time you verify invoices from unknown suppliers, it's very important that you also draw these squares on the invoice papers, so the system knows exactly where it is if it didn't find it the first time itself. And problem is with invoice definition, even though this is very good to have, but they accumulate over time, and most of them are auto-generated, and over time they can be a obstacle for the system to work as we intend or expect it to work. So we need to, first of all, make sure we have good definitions, and also make sure that we clean up what is not good for the system. But before I show you how to do that, I will just go through the optimize module, and to do so, I will jump over to, let me see, I have a blank system, no invoices, no nothing. So I will interpret an invoice just to simulate how it is with the first-time vendors. So we have an incoming invoice here. I'm not using master data, so I'll just type it manually. DSI and supplier number. This. As you can see, now this is a Danish invoice and a Danish profile, so it knows. It did find quite a lot actually. So it's an invoice which is correct. That's what factura means. We have the invoice number, also correct. The date was not found, probably because it's a very old invoice, but this is where the invoice is, invoice date, payment down here. The amount, that is correct. This is correct. There's no VAT rate on the invoice, so we skip that. That's fine. The FIG number has been found. The currency is not correct. This one, the registration number, it didn't find that. So what we just mark it manually, and right now it doesn't know how to separate between all this. So it's fine to just go in and remove what is now needed, like this, and approve it. So now that we made sure that all the fields have been found on the invoice, and we also added all the fields that we needed in order for us to verify, to approve the invoice. So what happens now is that an invoice definition has been created based on what I just did. And under normal circumstances, I would say try and wait for this invoice to appear again and see how it's performing in verify. You don't have to go in each time and optimize definitions. That would be overkill. But when you open the definition, you will see the image that came the first time you received this invoice from DSI. We have the supplier overview in this area here. If you had master data, you would be able to click on the supplier number and have a list of all available suppliers for this particular corporate group ID. Corporate group ID is often linked to the buyer in the system. You can also share master data across several legal entities, but most of our customers have one buyer has its own set of master data, but that will be available in this area as well. Then we have all the different fields that is available in the profile, the invoice profile. And what I forgot to mention is that we have what we call identifiers. We have two types. We have image identifiers. It is just a graphical representation of the logo. And then we have value identifiers. A value identifier is using what we call specifications to validate if it has found a correct identifier, where the logo, it's just as I said, it's a graphical representation, and it can only be used on the upper third part of the invoice. The value identifier in this case search for something that is similar to the specification that we have put in here, and in this case it's actually the CVR or the VAT number. And what it says here is it's either a 8-digit number or it is a 2-digit character and 8-digit number. What you need to pay attention to here is most of this on most invoices, both the receiver's VAT number is available and the sender's as well. And in this case, it actually found the receiver's VAT number. And when that happens, the system can often accidentally select this definition as the correct one if it finds this VAT number on other invoices. So make sure you select the correct one, which I will do now, like this, and press OK. The buyer, we don't use it that often. We mainly use it if you're not sorting your invoices. For instance, if you have a post office where you receive all the invoices and you just put them in one big pile and scan them without sorting into different buyer stacks. Then the system will try based on what it finds in the buyer's area and to select the correct buyer. We use more and more emails today, and each email is linked directly to a legal entity. So we don't accidentally send invoices into the wrong legal entity in your ERP system. So you can use it if you like, but it's not necessary in most cases. Then we have this credit invoice field. It's kind of a special field. The system tries to identify if it can find any information indicating that this is a credit note. And if it can't, it will mark it as an invoice. It's often a good idea just to select the title that indicates that it's an invoice or a credit note, because often they change this if it's another type of document. So you can help it a little bit just by drawing this little square here. Then we have the invoice number. Now I told you should change it to an X and make sure all these were clicked. And if you did so, I would ask you now to do the opposite, because now we are working on a single invoice definition that is linked to one supplier and not all suppliers. So in this case, the supplier is using a 6-digit number for the invoice number. I don't expect them to suddenly change to use letters or something like that. So what you should do is go in here and make it more tight, if you like, so that it is actually able to validate if it finds a 6-digit number. It could be that one is being interpreted as an I or an L. O could be interpreted as O if they use a certain font type, something like that. So you know for sure that if it suddenly finds some alphabets in the invoice number, it will give you a validation warning. The titles are also important that you use, mainly if it's a field that can move up and down or sideways on the invoice. Everything we see above the line item is often at the same spot every time. So it's not that important for these information, but just to be sure, mark the title as well, so the system knows where to find the information. Then we have the dates. The date can be challenging sometimes. It's very important that you help the system to indicate how the date is built up. Is it day that is the first part of it, and month the second, and year as the third? And you could do that by typing the different letters, indicating that the first two positions will be indicating the day, DD, for the two digits for month, and 4 digits for the year. If this customer only used 16 as the year, you would have to remove two Y's, and then it will automatically convert it into the format that you would like to see it in Verify. And also, if they put in the year first, and the month and the day like this, you would have to again reverse the letters so the system knows how to interpret them. And that also leads us to if they use 3-letter acronyms for the month, you would also have to put in 3 M's, indicating that this is they are using these 3 letters, because we will then try to convert them into a number based on a table that we have behind the system. When they use letters like this, it's important that you also take note of the language that has been selected. If you, in this case, use Danish, it will try to find OCT in the Danish translation table, and it doesn't exist because we use K instead of a C. So it's important that you find the correct one, or it doesn't matter if you take British, if it's an American invoice, but just they have the same language. It's more important when you use Lithuania and Vietnam and languages like that. You don't have to what if you would like to be creative with the date. If you know that right now it's only the 3rd of November, they put in 3, but you would like to actually add in 2 letters, but you are not allowed to. Just put it like, if they put in the date like this, and you would like to put in 2 D's for some reason, you can't do it because it says it's a field validation error. But if you want to approve it with these dates, you can just manually type in the date that you would like, and then press OK, and then the system accepts it. It sometimes it can sometimes help if you have trouble with the dates. Good. Yeah, again, put in the title so it knows where to find it. Now the payment date, it's actually underneath the line items. So under normal circumstances, I would say this would be a field that could go up and down, but based on this format they have used on the invoices, I guess no matter how many lines they put in, they will just fill out the empty space, and if needed, they will use a second page where they would also use the same size of boxes. So in this case, I'm pretty sure they will actually always be on the same spot, but it will probably be on the last page instead. So I will change it from the first page to the last page, because that's where I will start searching for the due date. Then we have amounts. Again, it will be the same process. If they put in the amounts just underneath the different line items. They don't have this pre-printed layout of the invoice. Then it's likely that the amount will move up and down on the invoice paper. And in order for the system to automatically find it, no matter what page it's on or where it's located, we need to use the position arrows, as we call them. As a standard, they are just put as a spot on. That means they don't move anywhere on the invoice. They will always just be in this position. But when they start moving up and down, you need to select this up and down arrow for the system to search for this title. So whenever you use the up and down arrow, it's important that you also have a search title to look for. And in this case, it will be this word mom-split amount. So it will search for that. And once it finds it, it will go just underneath and find the information, because it knows that based on where the line is, and so the title is, the amount is just underneath. And you should do that for the VAT amount as well and the gross amount. Sometimes for euros and amounts like that, they've often put in the euro just before or after. So it can also be a help to select if it's after or before the amount. In this case, there is none, so it doesn't matter. Then we had some issues with the registration number. It should only be a 4-digit number, but it couldn't actually find out. It just, when you do reinterpretation, it puts in the full number. So what you can do is use asterisks, and each asterisk, actually, can put in a few. Each asterisk removes 1 digit. So you just need to, how many is it? 2 more, like this. So whatever it finds here, it will just take the first 4 digits and remove the rest, like this. And we used account as the search title. The same goes for account number. We will remove the first 4 instead. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is 2, 4, 6, 8. It's a 10-digit number. Like this. So now you can see it finds the correct information. And then we have this strange number that we often use in Denmark, fig number or geostreng. And if we have a look at that, just copy it out. And I will also copy the field specification, just to give you an understanding on how the field specification works in terms of validating the information that is in the field. It can look quite strange when you see it the first time, but if you split it up, it's actually not that complicated. The first part of this number is a plus sign. And you can see we have an X. An X means it can be any characters, both number, alphabet, and special characters. And we use these square parentheses. And that means it can be a 1-digit special character, and it has to be either this, it can be one of these 2 signs, but only one of them. And that makes sense in terms of we expect a plus. The next part of the equation is that we expect a 2-digit number. This time we use normal parentheses, and we're just indicating that it's a 2-digit number. We didn't use these over here because, and if we don't do that, it's only 1 digit that we expect. If I put in 2 afterward here, Oh, sorry, 2. Then it can actually, then I actually expect a two alphabet characters or 2 special characters. So it can be, it can be 2 pluses, or it can be, sorry, it can be these 2. So any combination with these 2 signs. But as we don't have that, we only expect 1. And then again, the next X, now we expect 1 more special character, which is this one. And then we have this section where we expect between 15 and 16 numbers. That's the one we have here. And again, special number character, one we have here. And then we expect 7 to 8 digits, which we have here. And then lastly, this special sign. So that's how we validate that we actually go in and find the correct numbers in the field when we interpret documents. And then we have the currency. Currency is also a kind of a special field because it is what we call a supplier field. That means the system remembers what you selected the first time you approved an invoice. So if you select Danish kroner as the currency and you suddenly switch to euros or some other currency, it will come up with a warning that you have changed the currency to what it was expected from the supplier. And that's just a safety precaution. And it can sometimes be quite hard to relearn the system that is actually acceptable to that it has switched to euros now. So often you need to delete the definition and recreate it or let the system create it. But you can, if you have nerves to do so, click on the no interpretation. If you know for sure they will always send Danish kroner, you can just click this one. So there will be no interpretation. It will simply just put in what you have put into the title. So once you have done this, the VAT rate is not present on the invoice, so we cannot learn the system where to find it. So unless you want to have it shown in Verify, you can simply go in and inactivate it. Then it won't be visible in Verify. As you can see also here, it's grayed out, means it's inactive. And that is more or less what you should do when you optimize your definitions. It can be quite challenging in the beginning, but in the long term, first of all, you're getting used to it, and it can actually go quite fast. And the good thing is you don't have to do it on every invoices. Actually, that is what the next slide will also show you, that doing it on all invoice definitions would be not worth the fight, to be honest. What you should focus on is some of the numbers that you see in Optimize. When you start seeing all your definitions, they will also be represented with a lot of numbers. And some of the most important ones that you should look for is, well, first of all, the one that we call incorrect ident. As you can see, there's a headline above all the different definitions. And if you click on the headlines, you sort by this column. And if you make sure that the arrow points downward, you get the highest number first. And incorrect ident means that the system identified an invoice definition, but you as a verifier operator has selected a different supplier. So both the system has used valuable time interpreting an invoice with an incorrect definition, and you as a verifier operator has to find the correct one and change it, and maybe do some manually work as well. So if you can see, there's a quite high number of incorrect idents compared to how many times have you actually used the definition. I would simply suggest that you delete it. It's no needed in the system. Also, try and sort on the all time total. I don't know why it said all time total, but if you sort on that, you will get a list of the invoices that you receive the most, the suppliers that send you the most invoices, and of course it can be beneficial to optimize those. And if you can optimize your top 20 from that list, you will most probably cover 80% of your invoice flow. So then we have something called optimize, a field called optimize as well. You can see it here. By default, it will always be a 0. But if you from verify send an invoice for optimization, it will change to value 99. And that means someone would like you to look at this definition. And just to tell you how to use Save to Optimize from within Verify, when you have an invoice open, you can go to Invoice and go down to Save to Optimize. There will appear this, now it's a quite large dialog box I put in here, but it would look like this, where you can select from some predefined information, or you can type it yourself. What do you want someone to optimize on this invoice? For instance, it can't find the invoice number anymore, or the date keeps being incorrect. So this will appear, and once you have typed in the information you would like to provide, you can just click OK and approve the invoice as you're used to. And the reason why you should use this is actually there's a lot of reasons. First of all, if you have an invoice that is connected to the wrong supplier, that is, if it's on the front page, say it's from Encoma, but when you open it, you can see an image from Maersk Line, for instance. Then it's a wrong supplier connected to the invoice definition. And that is the one that you see an incorrect ident as well. You should use Save to Optimize if you keep seeing a lot of fields that are not being captured correctly, or even if it can't find the field at all. You should also use it if you are if the verify operator is not the same as the optimize operator. And the reason for that is when you save to optimize, it's like putting a post-it note on the invoice saying that I would like you to do this and that on this invoice. And again, if you don't optimize on the fly, but only maybe do it once a week or every 14 days, something like that, then you can accumulate all the definitions you would like to look at when you have the time. And then lastly, old definitions. As I told you, the first time you approve an invoice, you get a nice image of the invoice as it looked at that time. But let's imagine we'd go 4 years into the future, and they change the ERP system, or they switch from sending invoice papers to PDF files. Then there's a big chance that the layout will change a lot. And I actually have an example here where this supplier back in 2017 looked like this, where we had an invoice number in the upper right corner, and 4 years after they changed the layout completely. So it's the same, even though it's the same supplier, but the layout is totally different. And if you, every time there's an issue with the definition, tries to optimize it 100% like this, it will never work, because in reality it looks like this. So whenever you resend an invoice to optimize, you also get a new, what we call a learning invoice sent to optimize as well. Sometimes we also see the same company uses different layouts, and it might be the same account in your ERP system. So in this case that I've shown you here, we have an invoice from a town called Hvidovre and one for Greve. And they use different layouts. If you, for instance, received this the first time, you will have the order number in the upper right corner. But when you receive it from Greve, you will get a quite funny invoice order number because it's a date on this one. So in order for you to handle these kind of different layouts for the same supplier, you have to create what we call a variant. And a variant simply means you have more than one definition for one supplier. And the way you create them is, it is probably most easy to do it in Verify, where you just, when you have selected your supplier, you go to description and type in the name of the new variant. In this case, I just put in German. It could be Greve or Hvidovre, as I just showed you before. Once you put in the title here and press enter, you will see this dialog box that it will create a new definition, and you need to be as accurate as possible, meaning that you need to draw all the different squares again on the invoice paper. And as you can see, I have hidden a lot of fields for this vendor, put them inactive, but once you create this new definition, all field from the profile will be active again and visible. Once you have this definition, you can see in Optimize that now you have the same supplier number twice, where you have a description in one of them and a blank in the other one. The blank is the default one that was created the first time. You can, if you'd like, open it and put in a description. For instance, it can be whatever you want. But that is how you identify them in Optimize. In Verify, if you select the supplier, it will pop up with this dialog where you have to select one of the variants that you would like to use. That is how you can tell if there's a variant here. And if you want the system to automatically distinguish between these two variants, you need to use the identifiers carefully, because as a default, it will only search for the logo. And in this case, these two invoices are identical if you look at the logo. The only difference that you can find, well, just to explain, it's the same company that these invoices goes into in your ERP system, but they come in different languages. So I've created, in this case, a German definition and an English definition. And for the system to find out which one to use, first of all, I told it to look for the logo on both of them. But as a second identifier, I told it to look for the word Rechnung and invoice. And once you do that, you can go in the identification. I can just show where it is. If you have the definition, go to settings, go to identification. By default, it's set to OR. That means it will search for the logo. And if it can't find any logos, it will try and search for the second identifier. The problem is both papers had the same logo, so we need to change it. So it has to match both the logo and this second identifier as well before it will work. And you need to do that on all variants. Otherwise, it will simply select the one with the first and best logo if available. So that is how it works, and you can use it for if they have different languages, if they use different currencies. That's how we normally use them. And why all this work? Well, the main goal is to is simply have all the invoices be set to complete in your Verify module, so you can send it directly into your ERP system. And it can be terrifying sometimes, but we do have all these validations. So if you go in and put in specifications for each field, then you also know for sure that if they are complete, they have been checked the best we can do with machine learning. So there are several ways to auto approve invoices, and auto approve, that means if everything is green and accepted, it will go directly into ERP system. You can do it on the definition by go to settings, go to invoice, and check this automatically approve if that has status complete. You can also, if you're uncertain if that is the right way to do it, you can also go to your profile, right click, go to settings, go to invoice, and here you can type in a number, let's say 20. That means if you approve an invoice 20 times without touching anything, it will prompt you the 21st time that we have just approved 20 invoices without doing anything. Let's put it into automatically approval. It will give you some more comfort when you enable it. So that's a good way to achieve more auto-approved definitions in your system. You can see in both the manager module, but also in the optimize module, if the definition has been set to auto-approve. I have sometimes tried to, where I forget that I have set it, and sometimes I simply don't know where my invoices are when I send them into the system. They are gone, but that's because they've been auto-approved. But you can see it from here how many you have. I think it would be a good idea to set some goals. Try to maybe set 5 or 10 a week, something like that, to be auto-approved. And also in the process log, you can see how many of your invoices goes through automatically. It's also an indication that if it says autocomplete, that means it is actually, it's green in verify, but you have still manually approved it. If it says auto approved, it indicates that it has gone through automatically. And remember, no matter what, if there is an error, if there's a validation error on the invoice, even though it's auto approved, set to auto approve, it will end up in verify for you to correct it. So hopefully this will help you be much faster in the verification process. And it's a one-time investment, but it pays off in the long term. So, and that is what I have to say today. So are there any questions from you?